O- Okay, just started recording. We'll start the roll. Albany,
Here.
Barnet, Bloomfield,
Here.
Brighton,
Here.
Brownington,
Here.
Brunswick,
Here.
Cabot, Charleston, Concord, Corinth, Danville,
Here.
Derby,
Here.
East Haven, Glover, Granby, Greensboro,
Here.
Groton,
Here.
Guildhall, Holland, Daryl Martin, can you hear me? If you can hear us, Daryl, we can't hear you. So you don't appear to be on mute, but maybe your volume isn't turned up. Irisburg,
Here.
Jay,
Here.
Kirby, Lunenburg, Linden,
Here.
Maidstone,
Here.
Marshfield, Morgan, Newark,
Here.
Newberry,
Here.
Newport Town,
Here.
Norton, Peacham, Reigate, Sheffield,
Yeah.
Stannard,
Here.
Sutton, Topsom, Troy, UTG, Victory, Waterford,
Here.
Westfield. Jake, are you still with us?
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, I was on mute.
Yep. Westmore
Here.
and Wheelock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you get Daryl's message, Paul? He typed in because I don't know, his mic might not be working.
Oh, he's in the chat. Okay. I'm not sure how that works. So,
As
Daryl,
long as there's a way of communication, it's still good.
you can hear all of us. If so, type that in the chat. Because we need to make sure that he can hear us. Yes, okay.
I think if he does *6 on his phone.
Are you on your phone, Daryl, or on a computer?
Oh, he's typing, so I don't think he's on his phone.
Okay.
Well, as long as he can hear all of us, I think we're good. There's really nothing to vote on except the minutes. So,
Short and sweet meeting.
Shannon, you have 23 now with Daryl?
I got 24.
Oh,
I didn't notice Jan before. So I have 24.
and I have 23. Well, either way, we need 23 for a quorum. We can
Just
reconcile
double
that.
check the minutes when you see
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
for my mistake, but
Yeah. So Nick, if you want to go ahead and start.
Yep, we can call the Tuesday, June 11th, 2024 meeting of the Northeast Kingdom Waste Management District to order. We will go right into Article 2. Is there any updates to the agenda? Hearing none, we will move right to Article 3, which is the approval of the minutes of the April 9th, 2024 meeting. Because we did not have a May meeting.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of April 9th, 2024 as written.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion, errors, corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor of the approval of the minutes of the April 9th, 2024 meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you.
Before we go on, I guess this could be either an update to the agenda or other business, but we do have a couple visitors with us this evening from NEKWMD, and Jennifer Griffith and Stephanie Frisch. I'm not sure if Stephanie's been with us before, but Jennifer has. She presented information on closed landfills a while back, probably a year or so now. And so I'd like to allow them to speak, give them, 15 or 20 minutes, and then we could just go over the updates at the very end, if that's okay with everyone.
I think that's fine. Is there any objections? Perfect. You ladies have the floor.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. So I'm going to share my screen because we actually have a presentation. So as you probably remember, or maybe you remember, I worked with Paul and Shannon when she was with the Waste District. So it's great to see her. We worked on many topics over the course of time, but most recently it was closed landfills last year. But now we're working on PFAS, and I used to work some with Michael Namus at the DEC too, so that's interesting. Okay, Paul, you've disabled participant sharing, so do I need to, I didn't send you the slides, shoot.
Well, where do I enable that?
I don't know.
I think if you make Jennifer a co-host, she'll be able to share.
So I guess you right click or click on those little dots next to my name, and
I'm
that will
trying to find that.
make me in the participants.
There we go.
Let's see. Okay.
It says make host. So
Yeah.
you are the host now.
Oh, okay. Remind me to give it back to you. All right, let's see.
Okay.
I can.
Oh, and I guess before you launch into it, if you could just tell people what PFAS is. Well, I guess
Yes.
do that. Yeah. Never mind.
Oh, here's the. Oh, I have the bar. I got to get the bar from from. Oh, this is ridiculous. Okay. Oh, no.
We can see the presentation on our end, Jennifer. So I think if you just go to the first slide and hit present, if you're able.
Yeah, but that's the problem, that the things at the top are
That's okay.
are out of kilter. So let's see, where's the thing at the bottom that lets me do it?
Should be able
Go
to
down to the bottom bar,
Yeah.
and then there should be the little 3 over from that.
This
To the right.
slideshow. There we go.
Yes.
All right. Are you seeing the presenter mode or the
Neither.
or the just the slides?
We're seeing it unpresented.
On the presenter mode?
No, it's as if you've just opened PowerPoint.
So you're not seeing just the one slide, the title
Correct.
slide?
No, we're seeing the lineup of slides to the left of it as well.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's not. I'm sorry, everybody. Hang on. Let me stop sharing, and then I'm going to share my screen instead of the presentation. And then All right, well, Stephanie, I don't know if you can share the slides instead, and then, because yeah, the bar, let me see if I can move this so that now I can slideshow from the beginning. Are you seeing that now?
We see presenter mode, so go into the display settings, right to
Um,
the right of show taskbar where you were. And then you should be able to switch the view. Yeah, swap.
Okay,
Oh,
sorry about that, everybody.
beautiful. Perfect. Okay, we're good to go.
All right. So, yeah, so we have some slides here. So first, just a refresher on NEKWMD for those that don't remember from the other projects. We are the Northeast Waste Management Officials Association. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan interstate association of the solid waste, the hazardous waste, the wayside cleanup, and the pollution prevention programs and toxic use reduction and those kind of programs in the 8 Northeast states. So the 6 New England states, New York and New Jersey, and so Vermont DEC is a member of NEKWMD. So just really quick. And then we get grants and different things to work on solid waste projects. And we've worked with the Northeast Kingdom on, like I said, a lot of different projects. So just real quickly, our presentation, give you a quick outline of the project we've been working on with the Northeast Kingdom, and then what is PFAS and why do we care, how it gets in the environment. And then our focus of the project is on PFAS in consumer products and trying to make people more aware of that. So our project is focused, like I said, on the consumer products and the impact that they have. PFAS are in a lot of different products, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And the purpose of the project is to help the average person learn a little bit more about PFAS, and then also how they can, some ideas for substitutes or alternatives to things that have PFAS in them. So what we've done so far, we made fact sheets last year that were geared toward the public. There's 5 of them. I don't know if Paul has shared them with you all or not. But we did do a couple outreach events last summer up there. We did the farmer market in Lindenville one day. Unfortunately, it was kind of rainy, so there weren't that many people there. And we also had a table at the recycling center one Saturday. So there are 5 fact sheets that are geared towards the general public, and they're on these 5 different topics over here. Currently, we're working on a guide for food service, like schools and with cafeterias, hospitals, restaurants, people that do food service and where PFAS might be in that. And then also, we're going to be doing some outreach, hopefully, to food service folks and potentially a school. So what are PFAS? So this is a little chemistry, but it stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. That's the PFAS. And it's a group that's thousands of different permutations of these way to hook up the atoms in the chemicals, but so there's thousands literally of PFAS chemicals, and they're used in hundreds, and they're used so widespread and for many things because they offer water resistance and waterproofing. They are also oil and grease resistant. They're stain resistant because of that. And then they're also resistant to friction. So they make things really slick. So there's a lot of really useful uses of them, and so they're very widespread. They're known kind of as forever chemicals. You might have heard of that being referenced. And just the main characteristics is they have a carbon fluorine bond, and they can have a bunch of them. So sometimes you might hear people talk about C6 or C8 or C10, and that is how many carbons there are in the atom, and then they all have fluorine attached to them. That's what makes them a PFAS, is because these are all carbons right here, and they've got fluorines attached to them. And then they're sort of differentiated by how many carbons, but then also what they have on the on the other end here is can be all different. Now, I'm not a chemist and I don't know how they do this, but that's just a couple of informational things. And then most people think that if something is for sale, that means it's safe, but that's really not true. We don't have a system like that in our country. Basically, it's mostly people can, especially things that have been out in the market for a while, they can just keep doing it, and then it's up to the government to prove that it's not safe, which is a really high bar to have to do. So these chemicals were first accidentally made in the 1930s, which was Teflon. Probably all heard of that. And then it was used in the 40s in the Manhattan Project. And then they started using it in the 50s for consumer products. We had all these things that were Teflon coated fabrics, Teflon coated cookware, because it's nonstick and it's durable. Then in the 60s, they made aqueous film forming foam, which is firefighting foam. When you can't put out a fire with water, a lot of times they use foam, and also to try to suffocate things so that we don't, so if it's a fuel fire, you don't have, it can't even catch on fire. So they put it on preventively. So it's been widely used by fire departments and at airports. So starting in the 60s, and then, one of the companies that manufactured knew that there was issues with PFAS back then as well. Then in the 70s, they were significantly expanded uses of PFAS, just it started being put in all kinds of stuff. And then by the 2000s, people started realizing there was some issues. We'll talk about that in a sec. And so there was a voluntary phase out of some of the more well-known PFAS, like PFOA and PFOS, you might have heard of. So those are voluntarily phased out, but industry just keeps making new combinations of these atoms, and there's just more. We're not done yet. So why are they so problematic? Because that carbon fluorine bond isn't natural. So they have to use a lot of force and heat to make that bond. And then once it's made, it's almost impossible to get it apart. So these chemicals just don't break down in the environment. And so they're just accumulating because we're using them and we like them. They're very useful. So they're just accumulating, and they're basically in all of our blood, and the blood of just about every animal and person on our whole planet, unfortunately. So they do have an impact on human health. And on animals and things, even at relatively low levels. And they have polluted water supplies, including, in Vermont. And I'm sure you've all heard about what happened down in Bennington, the Bennington area back in 2016, and it's still ongoing now, the contamination down there, and the impact on people's drinking water and their exposures. So, but unfortunately, the PFAS really weren't, people thought they were benign until more recently. So they haven't been regulated. So it's now things are catching up, but they really haven't been. And so these are some of the health effects that are associated with PFAS. You can just read them, but there's increased thyroid issues and hormone issues. They're worried about immune and vaccines maybe not being quite as effective because of reduced immune response. So PFAS in products, they can impact the environment because they're not going to break down. So they just are going to move around. And this picture sort of shows how things move around. And so if you have a PFAS containing product that you're using, Stephanie's going to talk more about the different products and ideas for substitutes. But, a lot of them, what ends up happening is we're going to wash our stain resistant carpet and then it's going to go into the wastewater, into the septic system or treatment plant. If it's in the septic system, you're putting some in the soil, but you're also letting it get into groundwater that might be used for drinking water. If it's going to a treatment plant, some of it's going out in the water that leaves the treatment plant, but also it can be in the solids that are accumulating, the biosolids from the treatment plant. And then those have to go somewhere, which they can go they used to be used a lot for land application because they do have a lot of nutrients in them, the biosolids. So were put on soil, or they end up in a landfill, but landfills have leachate, and it just moves around because they don't break down. So there are other sources besides our consumer products that contribute to PFAS in the environment, but like the firefighting foam when that's used, or when manufacturers are using it. And there's also just some that's naturally, well, not naturally, it's not a natural chemical, but is going just in the air and depositing from the air and creating contamination problems. But some studies have shown that the wastewater that's coming just from residential areas can have higher concentrations of PFAS than the levels that are coming from more commercial areas. They did a couple studies in Vermont, in Middlebury and in Colchester, that both showed that wastewater coming from people's homes has higher levels than wastewater coming from businesses. So it is definitely a problem, and particularly of concern if you are on a septic system, and even more concerning if you're drinking the groundwater. So it is something to be concerned about and to try to really reduce our use in our homes of PFAS containing products. So I will turn that over to Stephanie now.
Thank
So
you,
I guess I'll keep
Jennifer.
advancing the slides. We didn't do
Yeah.
plan this.
Yeah, and we'll take if you have any questions during my slides, happy to answer them, or we can keep them for the end as well. So we just want to reiterate that what products often contain PFAS, those that are labeled water resistant or waterproof, oil or grease resistant, stain proof, those with stain release often contain PFAS. So first, our overview fact sheet really covers why should I care. Our key takeaways from this fact sheet is: one, it addresses the exposure, health effects, and potential environmental effects that Jennifer just went over, but it also touches on children because they have smaller bodies than us. They can have heightened exposure to the same amount of PFAS, especially due to their hand-mouth ingestion or close contact when they're crawling on rugs and carpets. They can inhale PFAS as well. What we can do about just the general issue of PFAS, we can check labels, read ingredients, be aware of the issue, and also just understand that unfortunately PFAS are often unlabeled because manufacturers are given proprietary ingredient status, so they don't have to be disclosed. So focusing on those labels that we just talked about can help us discern which have PFAS. And then our other 4 fact sheets that we created to finish out the 5 are clothing and textiles, foodware and packaging, outdoor recreation, and personal care products. I'm going to go more in depth into these, but you can access these on our website and via that QR code there.
Yeah, we'll give Paul a copy of the slides so he could share them with you if you're interested.
So our first message is just be skeptical of claims. So first, PFAS-free claims. There's a lot of different claims that are out there: PFC-free, PFOA-free, PFOS-free. These are statements that are specific PFAS chemicals. So even if they make these statements, these products still may contain other PFAS. It's a way to get around and use other thousands of these PFAS chemicals rather than these specific ones. And then secondary is just green messaging. There's a lot of specifically more related to food products and food packaging. These molded fibers and recycled fibers, often advertised as compostable, need to be treated with PFAS in order to retain or achieve their water and grease resistant properties that are often advertised. So PFAS is mixed into that paper pulp during that process. So just being really cognizant of, even though these products may be green, they might not be as green as we hope. So focusing in on clothing and textiles, many fabrics are treated with PFAS to achieve durability, water resistance, and stain resistant qualities that we all know and love. Some examples of textiles that might include PFAS include clothing, bedding, our tablecloths, window and shower curtains, upholstered furniture, rugs, and carpeting. This category really contributes to human exposure from getting into the drinking water from that laundering and entering our wastewater, and breathing in dusts from our upholstered furniture, rugs, and carpeting. So what can we do about this? First, we can just choose to buy textiles that are not labeled with these waterproof, stain, oil resistant qualities. Really look for those untreated natural fibers such as cotton, linen, wool, hemp, and silk. Really focusing on just more natural fibers and products in the house is one way that we can reduce this. You can choose wood or tile flooring instead of carpet when you're changing your flooring, or if you want carpet, you can choose to use carpet that isn't labeled with those water, stain, oil resistant properties. We can also, with clothing, try and spot clean it with plain soap and water rather than washing the full item, especially for some other items and like rain jackets that I'll talk about in the outdoor section. That can actually really increase the lifespan of your product, so it can be even beneficial for yourself and your wallet. We do recommend that, especially if you have an older clothing item, PFAS do wash out over time as it enters our wastewater. So continuing to use the products that have been laundered for a long time can be more helpful than buying new if it's going to have PFAS in it. And just being cognizant, like I said, to reduce the amount that we're laundering these items to the best that we can. So foodware and packaging, very similarly, key takeaways: if it has that water, oil, or grease resistant label on it, it probably contains PFAS. Some examples of foodware and packaging that may contain PFAS include nonstick cookware, those disposable paper plates and tableware, coated food packaging, bakery bags, pizza boxes, takeaway containers. All those may be coated in PFAS. And our primary concern with human exposure in this category is direct consumption, the PFAS getting on your foods and you eating it. Vapors from overheated nonstick cookware can not only put PFAS into your foods, but it can put it into the air and you can breathe it in, as well as entering the drinking water again through that wastewater. What we can do for foodware and packaging is, one, choose to use cookware that doesn't have a nonstick coating, such as stainless steel. You can use reusable containers and bring those containers to restaurants for leftovers, and try to minimize the amount of takeaway containers that you need. You can also, if it is disposable, choose uncoated or wax coated products that do not advertise that oil, grease, and water resistant property. Again, constantly going back to those terms. And if you are composting, choose only to compost food waste rather than composting containers. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, there are a lot of green messagings that may not be true regarding PFAS in these compostable containers. And if we can remove that from our compost stream, we can keep our compost as PFAS free as possible. And then just focusing on this slide, that nonstick cookware can only be heated to a certain temperature, and above that temperature, it will start to release chemicals into our food and air. And then for outdoor recreation, we have examples that may contain PFAS, any bike lubricant, boots and shoes and care products that are waterproofing those products, rain gear and other outdoor clothing that, again, are meant to wick water away and wick sweat away. Especially waxes, ski, boat, surfboard, hockey. We talked about how they are very friction resistant, which makes them a good product to add to your wax. Tents, again, for waterproofing, same with backpacks, and any of those waterproofing and protectant sprays, a lot of them are coating your product in PFAS. So they primarily contribute to human exposure through One way is direct consumption. When it gets into the environment, into our waterways, like Jennifer mentioned, it gets into the blood of not only ourselves, but the animals in our environment. So just being careful when consuming game and fish, getting into our drinking water because it's washing off our clothes into the wastewater and getting into our drinking water, and then breathing it in again with textiles when you're heating up waxes, spraying those protectant sprays. It creates these vapors and aerosols and dust that we can physically breathe in and enter our body that way. So what can we do with outdoor recreation? First, use PFAS-free waxes. This area is increasingly expanding, so hopefully there will continue to be even more PFAS-free waxes on the market. Limiting washing durable water repellent products. This is pretty much DWR is a frequent acronym that is labeled on a lot of raincoats, rain pants, snow jackets. So really focusing to spot clean your outerwear as much as possible. And when washing it, making sure to prolong its lifespan as much as possible, washing it in the correct products and the correct care. You can try, like I said, spot cleaning. And then if we must use PFAS waterproofing products, choose a rub-on product rather than an aerosol because it will help protect your body from breathing it in and those around you. And again, similar to PFAS-free waxes, using PFAS-free boot and shoe care products that are more thick waxes rather than a waterproof coating can be beneficial. And our little note on this slide is just that PFAS can be found in fish and game. We recommend, since this especially was a project covering Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, and everywhere is different, we recommend just checking local do not eat advisories before consuming, especially if you're traveling to a new area where you don't frequently hunt or fish.
Stephanie, if I could interject just
Yes.
moment and loop back to the food packaging. We started to look into this after a meeting with the Coventry landfill, and Coventry takes a lot of heat, I think, sometimes because they're the end result, end disposal facility for waste, not only in Vermont but throughout New England. And the only reason there are elevated PFAS levels at the Coventry landfill is because of the products that we purchase and put into that landfill. So
yes,
we shouldn't be blaming the landfill folks. But just to give you an idea, used to be years ago things were wax coated. Think about like oatmeal comes in a cardboard container with what appears to be a wax coating. Nobody uses wax anymore for coating. Sugar packets, hot chocolate, anything that comes in a packet where they don't want it to stick to the outer package is coated with this material. So, I just kind of want to emphasize that on a personal level, we're surrounded with this chemical everywhere. It's not only in clothing, but it's in food products, food packaging, cosmetics. I said, well, maybe we should develop a list of products that this is in. We can try and get people to avoid purchasing these things. Well, the list of what it isn't in is shorter. Yes.
Yep.
Put this in perspective. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
Yeah, but I will say it's not in everything though. So there's we're not saying all food packaging or all well, she hasn't gotten to cosmetics yet, but not all or all textiles. It is prevalent, and people should be more aware and try to minimize purchasing items if you can. That's one of the main messages. So no.
I think we had
Yes.
another comment
Well, I have
before
a
we
comment
move.
with Nana Jackson. The EPA has just made a rule that the producers and not the utilities, and then talking about wastewater, water and wastewater plants. They're gonna go for the end, they're not going for the end user, they're going for the producer. And PFOAs and PFOSs, they're getting really, trying to go to the root of where it's coming from.
Yes, yeah, people are, it was very unregulated for a very long time, and now, you know, thanks unfortunately to Bennington and the experience that, you know, really kind of blew up there and then migrated throughout the Northeast here and across the country, people are much more aware now, and so they are trying to make efforts to address it. And so, yeah, you know, in theory, landfills and wastewater treatment plants are potentially liable, responsible parties for some of the contamination, but EPA is going to use its enforcement discretion. I think that's what the policy is, to not pursue municipalities and because, you know, firefighting foam, you know, there's a lot of potential sources that make municipalities potentially liable, but EPA's not planning to enforce at that level. So.
Mhm. Yes, such great points. Thank you both. I will say, like Paul said, the list unfortunately for products that don't contain PFAS may be shorter in terms of these products, but we are trying to provide clear ways that we can make differences as consumers in what products that we choose and move forward with. So there are products on the market that don't contain PFAS, and those coatings that were wax, unfortunately, are either PFAS or plastics, which not that plastics are that much better. They have their whole other host of issues. But we are
Mhm.
working to create change together, and the best way we can do that is informing ourselves on what the issues are. So continuing on to personal care products, our key takeaways are long-lasting cosmetics likely contain PFAS. It gives them that waterproofing, long-lasting quality, especially in sunscreen and mascara, are two of the biggest cosmetics that contain PFAS. Other ones include body lotion, dental floss, nail polish, hair care products, cleansers, shaving creams, anything that glides or has that. I don't know why they'd put PFAS in cleansers, to be perfectly honest, but they do it. And they primarily contribute to human exposure from direct consumption. We're placing these products very close in and near the mouth, so we're likely to consume a little bit through direct consumption, as well as washing these products off of our body and into the wastewater. It can get into drinking water that way. And what can we do about this? So we can choose sunscreens and cosmetics without PFAS. There are brands that are working hard to remove PFAS from their products or really stand out as PFAS-free products. We can avoid any waterproof or water-resistant cosmetics and products. Same with floss. We can choose PFAS-free floss. These frequently have PFAS for that reduced friction glide, but choosing uncoated natural fibers or a true wax coated floss is a good alternative. And then we can also consider alternatives such as pressurized water flossing to limit the chance of PFAS exposure from that, but that means that your water also has to be PFAS free if we're going to be truly PFAS free. So just reducing it from our drinking water as much as possible is our goal. And our little note here is that there are two PFAS formulations that are frequently found in sunscreen: PAP, polyfluoral alkyl phosphate esters, and PTFE, polytetrafluoroethylene. These ingredients can show up on the labels of sunscreen. So reading that ingredient label to avoid those PFAS that are declared is one of the best ways we can reduce our exposure via personal care products. So switching gears to PFAS and food service, this is our guide that we're putting together that Jennifer mentioned. So focusing on potential exposure from these food service sources. One, drinking water still is a big issue. Again, focusing on heating nonstick pans. Once you get to that hot temperature, it will start releasing chemicals, takeout and food containers, carpet dust and cleaning, stain-resistant uniforms, tablecloth, napkins. But the different aspect to food service is really their cleaning chemicals, especially stripping and waxing floors. So really understanding what products likely contain PFAS and how we can avoid purchasing them both at a personal consumer level and at a business and professional level can help reduce workers and consumers' exposures to PFAS and decrease the amount of PFAS in the environment. So one study from New Hampshire DES was done in schools regarding floor stripping, washing, and waxing. They were found at high levels at all 4 schools from floor stripping in the wastewater that they did. They also found that PFAS were lower, but still significant amounts in the wastewater generated from just routine floor washing and cleaning. And they also found that the floor strippers and finishers, when tested, did contain high levels of PFAS, so it wasn't just a coincidence or from the water. And another issue was disposal of this wastewater from the floor stripping and finishing has likely contributed to contamination of the groundwater and drinking water at these schools. So really full circle again, like that diagram that Jennifer was showing, starting with these these high chemical concentrations of PFAS in our products all the way through wastewater is really how we're polluting our environment. So what can we do about floor stripping, washing, and waxing? First, we can just avoid wet cleaning. We can dry sweep as much as feasible, and to the extent feasible when we can clean with plain water and soap rather than harsh chemicals when possible. And when doing floor stripping and finishing, when necessary, we can do our best to choose products that don't contain PFAS, avoiding any products with fluoro in the ingredient, same with any ingredient label on a consumer product. And when we're disposing of our wastewater, don't just dump it down the drain or out the back door. Jennifer, do you have any recommendations for how you manage this high PFAS water?
So, yeah, and at this point, I don't think they've done any testing that hasn't found PFAS in what schools, and also I would say a lot of institutions and municipal buildings, anybody that has those linoleum floors and they're cleaning and waxing them. So it's not just schools, but what is recommended at this point is to definitely don't just dump the bucket out the back door. You definitely don't want to put it in the environment ever. And then if you're on a septic tank and you definitely don't want to just put it in your septic tank because then you're releasing it into the groundwater. If you're on municipal system, treatment plant for wastewater, it's not the greatest thing to put it there, but that's one of the only options. If you are on septic, the option is to try to collect that water and then have it brought to a wastewater treatment plant. So we're not getting it out of the whole system, but it's in a place where it's better managed than just on the ground or in the ground at the school. So
Thank you, Jennifer. And then our next slide. Yeah, and just finishing out with the food service aspects, potential environmental contamination, really focusing again on impacts of water resources. So wastewater and trash containing PFAS can lead to potential environmental contamination of our water resources, and really just honing in on those PFAS-free cleaning methods as much as possible to reduce our use of PFAS products and their entrance into the environment. So focusing on our food packaging when we're throwing it away or composting it, Ideally not composting it at this point from our research, just there aren't enough true claims out there to prove that it's PFAS free, and making sure that when we're washing that stain resistant uniform, tablecloth and napkins, that we're doing it the least amount as possible, and just being really cognizant to not buy stain resistant uniforms and tablecloths and napkins in the first place. Same with carpet cleaning, as we just discussed, and then with the floor stripping and waxing as well, just being cognizant of where that water's going. Awesome.
right.
Thank you so much,
So
everyone.
that's our little outreach on PFAS. So I don't know if you have questions, I can stop sharing.
We did get one question in the chat. What about flooding, like, I might pronounce this one, click types, CLIK? I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, I think that's a prefabricated, usually composite product, flooring. And my guess is if it's fire resistant in any way, it probably does contain PFAS. So it may not be in all of that click flooring or all click flooring, but there's a good chance, because it's a composite, that it's in many of them. And I don't know if flooring products are required to be labeled. This is a real tough issue, because a lot of these items aren't required to have their the ingredients, because who cares about what's in flooring? It's and getting back to the water thing, there really is no good option for disposal of the water. The key here should be, don't do it.
Yes.
Don't irrigate the water in the first place, which is a lot easier said than done. But there are alternatives that were mentioned to different types of flooring.
Yeah. So I think the issue is, you really can't. A lot of manufacturers, if you ask them, they're going to say, "Of course we don't use PFAS," but do they really know the source and what's all the inputs that they're getting? So there's just so many potential issues. So the really only way you can know for sure is to test. And there's just been limited testing at this point. New Hampshire DES is they have a small program to go just buy things off the shelf and have them tested. So we might start getting, and I could share so those 4 schools that they studied, they were all studied because they did have polluted drinking water, and they're on septic and groundwater, but they all use different products. So it's not like there's just one product that schools are using and that's the bad one, and then there's other products that are fine. But I could share the products that were in the New Hampshire study that they did test. So it looks like we have a couple hands. I think Ken had his hand up first.
Yeah, you say that these chemicals cannot be gotten rid of, so I don't see the advantage of putting contaminated water down to the septics, down to the system that the city's operating. It sounds like to me they're just putting it out into the river. Or is there something they are doing to get rid of the products in their water they receive?
Everybody is trying to focus on moving upstream and looking at where the sources are. And like I said, our residences are some of the sources. So, you're probably aware that Vermont does have a couple bans on products. Like I believe you're not supposed to be selling ski wax with PFAS in it anymore in Vermont. And there's other products. So states are starting to work on trying to get alternatives in the consumer market out there. But the treatment plants, so some of the PFAS is in the water that goes out from the treatment plant. So yes, and then some of it is in the biosolids. And so people are, everybody's just more aware of the issue now. So it's all trying to be managed better, but there's not a lot of good treatment alternatives. And there's ways to get it out of your drinking water, but then it's ending up in a solid. It's ending up in carbon or in some other thing. And then we're trying to work on destroying it. And that's still being studied, and there's not really good solutions, but it's all expensive as well. So the whole thing is just, so states are also, I think Vermont is suing some of the manufacturers for the damages. And, there's just a lot going on. Unfortunately, corporate America, though, has tactics to, limit its liability and its financial exposure. So I don't think states are going to be able to get the kind of money that they need to address this, but Shannon.
You had your hand up, Shannon.
Yeah, I just had to unmute. It just took me a second. Wow, Nick jumped on that. So I felt like I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Vermont legislature and the governor did just pass a law banning more products that contain PFAS. And so we have previously already had a ban on like fast food packaging and ski wax, as Jennifer mentioned. The ban has been expanded to include things like outdoor wear, as we mentioned, artificial turf, juvenile products. That's just a huge class, like juvenile products, but fire retardant clothing and children. We don't want them to burn, but we don't want them poisoned either. Cookware and textiles, cosmetics, menstrual products. And so I'm just mentioning this, I guess, to share that, the state is understanding that this is an issue and that we need to work towards this on multiple fronts, really addressing the products that are sold in the state. And, as Paul mentioned, there is a lot of blame going towards the direction of Casella. And I guess this is all just like, working with the DEC, I feel like I don't want to say too much about anything, but it is true that Casella is doing a project to remove PFAS from their leachate. And as I understand it, it's one of, the only tests of this type in the country. And so not only do we have these bans, but we have at our one landfill a lot of work being done to remove PFAS from the leachate, which, as we know, goes to wastewater treatment facilities in Montpelier, discharged to the Winooski River. And they've had, as I understand, really good success with the PFAS, like defractionation. It has to do with like bubbles or something, as I understand it. And so, that's just to maybe round out some of, the realities that we heard about PFAS that maybe some of you didn't know too much about, with the work that's being done on multiple fronts across the state. So thank you for the presentation. I've definitely learned something.
So and the messaging is also difficult on, if you already have these products, like if you already have carpeting that's stain resistant, should you rip it up and throw it out? But where does that go? So it's a difficult. And should we throw out all of our clothes and textiles and things, but so people do think landfills can be a good repository because there are ways to treat the leachate. Now you're still just removing it from the leachate. You still end up with a concentrated something that you still don't know what to do with. But some people say, well, you could solidify that and just put it back in the landfill and just keep everything sort of going around at the landfill. So, there's no good solutions. But as one of our state directors said 5 years ago, when the bathtub's overflowing, the first thing you have to do is turn the water off. We got to stop using this stuff and making it. So, but the issues, there's a lot of issues with imported products, and even though it's technically banned from sale, I'm not sure what the dates are for the effectiveness, but it's enforcing that and really getting good knowledge on that is challenging. So, so I don't know if anybody else has more questions.
Ken, I did see your hand up earlier. Did you have anything, or were you all set? I guess Ken's all set.
Yeah, I think I'm okay. I do kind of wonder when we have people coming into our recycling centers, we have 5 minutes maybe or so when they're walking around and putting their stuff in our gaylords. I'm trying to imagine how we can ever shorten the presentation to them and tell them one thing they could do. I can't come up with that yet.
I can answer that. So I would just say, one, we can we'll give Paul this presentation and he can distribute it, and there can be QR codes or links to our fact sheets at your facility that you can point people to, but really just recommending to people focus on those key terms that we said. Do not buy waterproof, water resistant, stain proof, stain resistant, grease and oil resistant. Really staying away from those terms can help diminish the amount of PFAS we consume. Would be my number one thing. What's a quick thing you can tell somebody?
Yeah, I know. But I like my jacket to be waterproof in my tent, you know, so it's like, oh, what, you know, what's the yeah. Anyway, it's a conundrum.
Paul, did you have anything quick, or did anybody else have any follow-up?
Remind Jennifer to, you know, revert back to me as the host before you go. So you turn the whole meeting off. And you're obviously more than welcome to remain on the line, but
Yes. Okay. Now, how do I do that actually? Because if I go over to my participant,
If you go to more and then you go to Paul, will it show up?
I think I just did it.
Paul's the host now, it
I
says.
just
Okay, you
refreshed
did it
myself.
yourself.
Yeah.
Good. Because I'm like, I don't think I can. All right. Well, sorry we took up so much time. Thank you for sticking with it and staying on, everybody. And yeah, we'll be having, I think, June 25th, which is only 2 weeks away, though, a virtual webinar for food service folks to raise awareness there too. So if people will Paul can let you know about that if you want to join that. All right.
Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time and having that presentation for us. It's actually, you know, pretty awesome knowledge. So
Yeah, gives you some good background, I think. So for what you might hear in the news. All right.
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Our contact information's on the last slide if you have any questions.
Yeah.
Thanks
Okay.
to both
Thanks
of you.
again.
We'll see you soon. So the only other thing really I have are the updates, you know, that were on the agenda. And, you know, I sent out the notes. It's about a half a page. I don't necessarily need to read from any of that, but does anybody have any questions on the finances for the month ending May 31st?
I have a couple, Paul.
Okay.
Number 71. I thought the iTech was all done a couple months ago. That's like what, 2,300?
Yeah, we have monthly fees for those folks, and that was primarily what was budgeted. So, you know, we will continue to incur costs under that line item because we have like a monthly service contract with those folks.
And last month in the capital improvement fund, there was 73,000, like 265. And this month is 60,275. So I was wondering where the 13,000 went toward.
Well, I know we borrowed some money from the capital improvement fund. There should have been two instances of that. One was early in the year, and then one, I believe, was just last month. I'm not sure about the other $3,000, Steve, is what we contribute towards the health insurance. So when we collect the per capita assessment, it goes into the capital improvement fund. And then when we pay the health insurance premium on a monthly basis, it comes out of there. So that's why the 10,000 would have been what we borrowed from it, and then the 3,000, and change would have been the amount of the insurance premium for last month. Does that help?
Well, yeah, that's my other question, because last June, there was a motion made to have the per capita go into just a health account, health insurance account.
Yeah, and
Separate.
I know that Michelle does account for that separately, but right now it's all in one account, and we probably should break that out just so that it does make more sense that way. I think the reason we haven't done that, it has to do with interest. If we separate it out, it would make less interest on the two separate funds, but I'll ask her about that and see what we can do there.
Single balance would give you a higher
Yeah.
return.
That's it on that.
Were you good, Steve?
I'm good, yep. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you have anything other programs, Paul, or do you want to just get into? I see you had your executive director search on there.
Well, I guess just briefly, we're in the midst of the household hazardous waste collection season. That list is on our website. We did advertise in the paper recently. We're still struggling with the polystyrene foam. We were able to do 9 ingots last week. So we're gaining slightly on that, but we probably have another 9 in bags on the floor. So we're trying to get our arms around that. I haven't really been able to focus much on the executive director search. I did have a conversation with our former board chair, Joel Cope, which was very informative about some of the things that they went through in Island Pond to hire a town manager, which I think will be very helpful, in the process that we develop going forward. I think one of the most valuable things is that, some of the things that they didn't do that he might recommend that we do pursue, like getting the League of Cities and Towns more involved in developing certain documents and the recruiting process. And then we're still waiting on getting our 2017 international back. Work I know was started on putting the new box on. Then there were some issues that they ran into with the latch for the door, and now the appraisal company and the folks doing the work are trying to negotiate a reasonable fee to fix that, which has slowed the project down some. But I really hope by this time next month that we've had that truck back. This claim happened in mid-December of last year, so it really has gone on for a long time, and it's not because the process has really been complicated as much as just slow movement in the supply chain, and then Iroquois having a difficult time scheduling the project into their workload. So Any other questions, comments? That's all I have.
Paul, I have one question, and we touched on it briefly, but we never finalized anything. It says we may need to consider hiring additional part-time staff to focus on processing phone. Well, that's something that actually we don't have anything to do with. That's something that actually you do, right?
Yeah, and we are, you know, I am looking at that now, trying to get some additional part-time help. We're always busier in the summertime anyway. And so, you know, hopefully that'll work out for us. It is kind of difficult to find labor right now, oddly enough.
Everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody that wants to work is working.
Yeah, and there are plenty of positions open, but yeah.
Well, all you gotta do is just drive down the road here and look at the sign for McDonald's, $16 an hour
Yeah,
for somebody coming out of high school or,
right.
and my son-in-law that worked here, he's waiting for the guy to get done college so that he can help him over in the cemetery.
Yeah, and I think with high school just graduating, you know, we should be able to find some part-time help.
Good luck.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, we're hopefully gonna get our hands around that a little bit better. You know, as I mentioned in the notes, it's difficult because if we free one person up, that doesn't do it. We need two people free at the same time, and that seems to be the challenge, getting two people who have time to focus on processing the phone. But
Question. How long does it take to make an ingot?
the question was, how long does it take to make an ingot? An ingot is about 4 bags of foam, and it takes about 20 minutes. So it, you know, we don't have to free up a lot of time, but once you get behind,
yeah,
you know, we did it almost all day last Thursday. Well, I shouldn't say that. We did it for about 4 hours, which yielded 9 ingots, so a little over 2 an hour. And that's the challenge, is trying to free up 2 people for 4 hours. I feel like once we get the backlog caught up, we would only have to spend an hour or 2 a week to stay caught up. But other things happen, you know, people call out, they go on vacation, whatever, and you fall behind because other things take priority, you know, so it's just a allocation of labor issue.
Okay, so how come it takes 2 people?
Oh, because the question, why does it take 2 people? One person has to feed the machine, and then somebody has to make sure that the material coming out goes into the mold, so that when you're done with the ingot, you can actually stack it on a pallet, and it's just not like a piece of taffy that went everywhere. So it's unfortunate. There's got to be a better design somewhere where when that material comes out, it gets forced into a mold somehow, but we don't have that. And I think because this was meant for a smaller municipality, this was something that, you know, maybe even volunteers do in other parts of the country for a couple hours on a weekend.
Yeah.
And we, you know, and that's why we're not introducing it in additional towns, because we have more material than we can adequately process right now. And once we figure that out, and I know it's been over 1.5 years, it'll be 2 years in August since we've had the machine, but you know, it's still been a challenge for us.
Okay.
When is your day that you had set up for people to come and watch that machine work?
Yeah, we do have an open house scheduled for October. I want to say it's the 8th, and I believe if you look in the minutes for the April meeting, That
It said May.
it was May, but we changed it because we needed more time. Oh, so yes, the last meeting minutes said still working on an open house for May of 2024. But I think when I sent the notes out for May that we weren't having a meeting, we had set a date in October. And like I said, I want to say that's October 8th, which is a Tuesday, which makes sense because we want to make sure that the facility's closed when we have people in. Ken, did you have a question?
Yes, on that phone machine, could you have somebody in the office or yourself call the manufacturer and ask if they are now making something that will handle this problem of it when it comes out of the machine? Maybe they solved this.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. I have a feeling, you know, the solution is purchasing the next size up. And I'm not sure, you know, we're in a position to do that right now. But yeah, maybe there is something that they've discovered over the course of the last couple of years that we're just not aware of. I would have hoped that if they had figured that out, they would have passed that information along to us, but it certainly can't hurt to ask.
Yeah, and a simple phone call might get you to save a couple hours.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
I'm just curious, what time frame are we looking at to possibly advertise the executive director's spot? Because it may take a while to get candidates.
No, that's an excellent point, Steve. There's a lot of groundwork that has to go into that before we do that. You know, we have to develop a position description. Island Pond actually, or Brighton, developed like a pamphlet, kind of promoting the town. I don't think we have to go quite that far. But I think I'll know more once I have a chance to sit down with VLCT and get their thoughts on that. I have started working on a position description, but you know, once the hazmat season starts, and the people come back into the area from, you know, Florida and other places, things just get busy around here. So I'm trying to, you know, I've got some certifications that I'm working on. You know, I will get to it, but yeah, we're closing in. Of course, you know, the other thing to remember too is if we don't get to the point where I'd like to be in September of 2025, I'm not just gonna, you know, turn my computer off and leave. You know, I'll carry the process through to the end. But hopefully it won't go, you know, too far beyond that.
Did you see Daryl had a couple of questions, but I don't know if you want to address some of that stuff with him at a different time.
Well, real quickly, Daryl, you shouldn't be accepting paper plates of any kind anyway. They're not recyclable for that fact that most of them are coated with something. So unfortunately, we don't know which paper plates are and which aren't. So the rule of thumb is if you don't know, just exclude them all. So any paper plates that are being turned in anywhere should be rejected.
Perfect. Do you have anything else, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, Daryl, as far as the air conditioners go, we can talk about that outside the meeting. You know, if you have questions specific to Holland, you know, send either myself or Corey Rayner an email and we can go over those.
Paul Westmore has a question.
Yes, Miriam.
Thank you. Contact information for the two presenters who presented earlier regarding the PFAS in the environment.
Yeah,
And their, I didn't catch their titles, where they're from. I take it it's a state organization, but I don't know if this would be, sent to us, or also would it be possible to obtain their presentation, but I would have to ask them about that.
no,
I think the town,
in fact, I've already received the email from Jennifer, and I will forward that to all board members who have provided us with emails.
thank you. And does that also include the presentation then?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think the town would benefit from seeing this. Thank you very much. Okay. Wait to hear from you then. Bye-bye.
Yep. Anybody else?
Ken here, about finding Paul's replacement. I think it's great that Paul is doing some work on this, but I remember when I retired, it was not my responsibility to replace myself. Somehow I think our executive committee needs to start stepping in here, because I'll be no help to you here, but I'm hoping there are some people on, and I think the board, we need to start doing a lot of this work. I don't think we should rely on Paul to replace himself.
And I don't disagree with you, Ken, but only I can create the position description. Nick and I can sit down, or any of the executive committee members, and talk about some of those things, but it really is going to boil down to me creating some of these documents, probably developing a timeline, and then the executive committee, I would assume, would step in to vet the potential candidates, conduct interviews, things like that. So once I can give them information that they can run with, then I can kind of step aside and let them, carry the ball.
Yeah, and I agree, Paul. Well, we obviously will sit down and go over a lot of stuff, but 20 years in the making right now, there's been a lot of changes, so I'm sure it's not something that's easily just done overnight.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna be, Paul, is the director description, hence when you started till now is, I mean, some of it is just evolved over the years, so it's nothing gonna be directly boilerplate stuff. It's all evolved as the process has continued on.
Yeah, but there are going to be some key elements that will be important to include. Maybe trying to frame the position a little better so that whoever succeeds me isn't getting sucked into the warehouse, working on the baler, or driving the truck to pick up recyclables when people don't show up for work. But who knows, maybe that will be expected because we have such a small organization that, we all have to wear multiple hats.
Yes.
Because you never know what's going to happen from one day to the next.
I think as long, Paul, I think as long as something like that is made aware to a potential applicant, it's not like surprise, as long as they're told that this happens in a small organization.
For a small organization, we cover a hell of a lot of territory.
Yeah.
And that, it has changed so drastic.
Yeah.
Since Paul came on. That.
What was it, 13,000 when you started?
No, there were,
When you
I
started?
want to say 29 towns,
I didn't think there was that many since you started.
or 31,
Yeah, they were-
31
they were
towns, and now
quite
there
a
are
bunch of
49. Yeah,
But now there's what, 43,
49.
49?
Yeah, so there has been growth, but yeah, we can get into this, you know,
I
in a
do have-
future meeting.
I have, a- I
But
have,
the thing of it is, Paul has got to have time to be able to put this together,
definitely.
that phone rings. Just the same as it did when we were sitting here watching those ladies. And-
Right,
and-
yeah, I have no idea who would call here at 7 o'clock at night, but the
No,
light
that-
is
that's just
beeping,
it.
yeah, so.
You may be working on one thing and somebody calls, wants this or that, and you're dealing with the 49 towns, the select boards or whatever.
Yeah.
Plus the help, plus the public.
Hey.
So we definitely got a lot of work to do, but again, I think it's probably that's coming up here real soon.
Okay.
Was there anything else?
I have
Jan has one more comment or question.
Michelle doesn't work full-time, does she?
She works 32 hours, 4 days a week.
Would she be open to working additional time, or is that what she wants to work?
I think I could safely speak for Michelle and say no.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and not for nothing, but Michelle had brain surgery
Yeah.
not long ago.
Yeah, I
So,
was gonna
you know,
say, with her
and
problems that she
we
had.
she didn't miss a single payroll. So I still don't know how we made it through that period, but yeah, I mean, she goes above and beyond
Okay,
in the 4 days that she is here, so.
Yeah.
Is it possible? I understand their volume has increased and our capability of handling isn't getting better. I mean, our capabilities didn't expand as much as the territory did, I don't think.
No, that's a good point.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I still haven't got off that kit. You need a compactor.
Well, it depends on, you know, what you're talking about. You know, I think we've tried to do as much as we could with the crew that we've had.
Yeah.
We have added staff over time, but I think that's something that we really need to look at, you know, for 2025 is, you know, what
We need, yeah.
what should we be doing as far as labor goes? So that we, you know, are adequately staffed. And that, you know,
In my second comment,
someone could take a vacation and not have to worry about what gets done when they're gone.
my second comment, I'd be bugging somebody at the state level very seriously. You guys in legislature have passed a whole bunch of rules and regulations about how we're gonna recycle, but you haven't put a dollar with it.
Where their mouth is.
Yeah. Well, and you gotta do this, you can't put this in that, you gotta, you know,
Yeah,
well, that's okay, but. There's no money goes with it, they do that a
well,
lot.
and you know, I can answer that question. We have taxing authority. And that's what they're gonna say, raise your surcharge, raise your fees
Yeah,
to cover your costs. I mean, that's.
Yeah, that's their attitude
Well,
over there in
I mean,
Montpelier.
not to defend the state, but the state is us.
yeah.
So
It is.
if they're gonna get more money, they're gonna be pulling it out of our pocket to hand it to us anyway, so. You know,
But I do think we should put, obviously there's gonna be more discussion than what we have time for tonight, so. It might be worth having this on the next few agendas to try to get a game plan anyway.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be on every agenda for every future meeting. and, you know, hopefully I'll have more things to update. But, you know, some months I might not.
Ken, did you have something quick?
In order to do more efficiency with your operation, Paul, is there anything that you could make a list of, those of us who work out here where we are collecting it on the sites, could do things to prepare so it could be more easily picked up and handled?
You know, I appreciate that question, Ken, but I really feel like, you know, the facilities do a great job of preparing materials for us. We do struggle when there's turnover with some attendants, like overfilling the bags of plastic. After one conversation where we say, please don't do that, they never do it anymore. So, you know, that's an ongoing process. And, you know, if the same people are there week in and week out, we usually have a pretty good rapport with them and good luck with them preparing things to get us in and out quickly. But, you know, that's always something we strive for. And, you know, I know it's hard as an attendant sometimes to kind of visualize, okay, what happens for on the other end when people come to get this. And, you know, our outreach coordinator works with the attendants to help them understand, you know, how things need to be prepared, where things should be positioned in your facility. You know, for instance, so we're not dragging plastic bags all the way across the facility and ripping holes open, you know, rolling glass barrels, things like that. So, you know, we are doing that now. It's usually on an ad hoc or an ad needed basis.
Right. Anything else quickly? If not, we can go into if there's any other business.
Nope.
Perfect. Well, then last and
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
Second it.
perfect. All those. Oh, actually, is there any discussion? Never is. Hearing none, all those in favor of adjournment of tonight's meeting signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Ayes have it. All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Good night,